You're listening to One Sweet Wrestling Podcast.
One Sweet Wrestling Podcast.
With your host, Beto Barragan.
And we all know that when the good Lord created man, he meant for him to look just like me.
And Alex Lewick.
The tower of power, too sweet to be sour. I'm funky like a monkey. Sky's the limit and space is the place.
The podcast made by fans for wrestling fans.
One sweet, one sweet, one sweet, one sweet.
You're listening to One Sweet Wrestling Podcast. All right, we are back with episode 4 of One Sweet Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Beto Barragan, and with me, as always,
Alex Lewicki.
That's right, baby. We got a stacked show for you tonight. It's going to be kind of quick up here in the top, but we definitely have an awesome surprise. Well, it's not, the cat's out of the bag at this point.
Yeah, it's very out of the bag. I think you know why you're here, and it's not to hear our mugs talk. It's for the interview later.
Yeah, exactly. So, but let's just go ahead and read the headlines. Okay, so reported on CBSSports.com, Vince McMahon sells $100 million of WWE shares potentially to restart the XFL. What are your thoughts on this, Alex?
He's got to let that dream die. I mean, at this point, it's been almost 20 years. He should probably let it go. Just focus on your health, your family, and just running the company until it's time for you to retire. The XFL is way too much problems for you to handle right now. But, hey, I'm not a billionaire, so I can't say anything.
You know, I'm kind of excited about it for the fact that it's rehashing an old venture, and I mean, he might be able to strike gold with this one. I think in this day and age, maybe with an alternative to the NFL, especially with everything that's happening in the NFL right now.
Or what if they make it even less rules? What if they don't have any type of like national anthem in the beginning and it just turns into this renegade outlaw football league that everybody hates?
I mean, that's what it was back in the day in 2001, I think, is when it aired.
It was 2001?
I think so.
Oh, man.
So should be interesting to see where they go from here with the XFL. I'm curious. For the sake of just curiosity, I want to see what he does with it. I mean, he could bring back like a American Gladiators type thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait and see, even if anything does come of this.
Right. So up next, we've got Dolph Ziggler, the U.S. champion. Is he leaving the WWE or is he sticking around? So the Bleacher Report.com reports that this could be Dolph Ziggler's swan song, if you will. Following his win at Clash of Champions over Baron Corbin and Bobby Roode for the U.S. title, he came out on SmackDown and boasted about his victory, kind of told the fans basically where to stick it, and left the title in the middle of the ring and exited. So people were kind of in is this a work? Is this a shoot? Because of the blurred lines of reality and a work at this point in the game.
He's staying. He's going to be there till Royal Rumble. I think he's going to have a nice little run of I'm not appreciated here. I'm going to leave. And I think everybody is going to know by Royal Rumble time if he's signed a new contract or not, which as of right now, I don't believe he has. So I think what this is going to do is set up another match between either Roode, Corbin, or another three-way and have him drop the title at a big pay-per-view and have that be his final hurrah with the WWE. Whereas everybody in the crowd knows it. They give him a nice send-off. Thank you very much. He hits the curtains. I think this is a good way to start. I think he has to drop it to Bobby Roode. This is going to be the natural progression of Bobby Roode to go up the ladder of SmackDown while he's there to eventually get to that world title picture.
Yeah, basically Bobby Roode becomes the quote-unquote new Ziggler, or just Bobby Roode in the mid-card until, the passage of time and we start to see that Bobby Roode becomes a main event player. But that's yet to be seen by upper management at this point, right?
Well, at this point, yeah, but I think his work ethic and just what he's going to do in ring is really going to shine through. I have a feeling he's going to have to rehash some type of rivalry with Shinsuke Nakamura because the two work off each other really well, and I think that's a good way to show their talents to an audience that hasn't watched NXT before. It's especially going to show them to a wider audience throughout the non-Raw watching audience because as of right now, you ask the average person, what do you know about Shinsuke Nakamura? Oh, he's a Japanese wrestler. Well, if you've never seen him wrestle outside of NXT and in New Japan, this is going to be a good way for everybody to get a good...
I think I know where you're going with this. It's basically just trying to build them up for the casual fan because
Yes.
I think casual fans or just people in general, the public... Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm kind of battling a cold here if you can't tell. Rough times, people. But anyway, basically, I think I'm following you that WWE is trying to build the roster to appease the casual fan.
Yes.
Because at this point, everybody knows the RKO with Randy Orton. Everyone knows John Cena for all the work he's put in. And with the 30 for 30 that came out recently, you know who Ric Flair is. And if you don't know who Hulk Hogan is by now, you've been living under a rock, right?
And I have a feeling that you're going to see the emergence of the mid-card really starting to push through to the main title picture coming in this next year. So
Well,
I'm
definitely.
excited for it.
Yeah, definitely. I see that as well because WWE has announced the Mixed Match Challenge, which is a tag team tournament featuring mixed teams of Raw and SmackDown superstars, which is going to air on Facebook Watch. So it's basically Facebook Live with WWE matches.
From what I've heard, what they're going to be doing is implementing this show as kind of a buffer after SmackDown and before 205 Live. So it's going to be, okay, SmackDown's done. Jump onto Facebook to watch, let's say, I'm just going to name a random team. Charlotte and AJ Styles facing Becky and, I don't know if this is going to be possible, but Cesaro.
That'd be cool.
You watch that for 20 minutes, you get a singles match or a single match, and then, hey, by the way, 205 Live is up next on the WWE Network. There, they have cross promotions between 3 different platforms, and I think it's good business for them. It's a really cool format, and I'm excited to see what teams get paired up. What I'd like to see is Braun Strowman and Nia Jax as a team. They would just be juggernauts.
She's actually taken to Twitter and just announced basically that who would be the team to beat Nia Jax and Braun Strowman. Waiting, everyone. Yeah, that would be a powerhouse team. I'd be very interested to see how that would work out.
You know who else would pair up really well with Nia Jax?
Who's that?
Samoa Joe.
That would be pretty good. And for the sake of that, you could do a lot of tag team maneuvers between the two,
Yeah.
I think.
And they're both, I want to say they're Polynesian, so I'm sorry if I'm offending any, Pacific Islanders. I apologize. I'm pretty sure I'm right in that they're both Samoan, but
Yeah.
I think it'd be a cool little tag team.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. So with that being said, WWE has announced for the first time ever the Women's Royal Rumble. Your thoughts on that?
My thoughts, if you guys go back to last week and listen about Ronda Rousey coming to the WWE.
The WWE.
Sorry, it's a little late. I'm drinking some tea right now, so I'm a little dry mouth. I have a feeling this is when you're going to see Ronda Rousey come out.
For sure.
A surprise entrant, and that's how she's going to be exposed to the WWE universe, as they like to say. But I think this is going to be one giant gimmick to get Ronda Rousey in.
So we spoke about this off air, and I know you're not terribly excited about this, but here's my thoughts on this. We have the new teams of Absolution and the Riot Squad who've just come into Raw and SmackDown respectively.
Right.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. So what we're looking at here is, I feel, a rushed roster buildup. I feel that they've thrown in a bunch of women wrestlers into the fold to make up for this Royal Rumble, for the Women's Royal Rumble.
That sounds right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It just seems, to me, it seems a little rushed. And I'm so for it. I'm so for the Women's Royal Rumble, but I want quality.
Yeah. At this point, for some reason, only seeing, 12 women? That's not a Royal Rumble to me. I get it. You can't have 30 women in the company. Yeah, maybe you can.
Do you call up NXT?
You know what? I think they're going to have to rely on a lot of legends, so I wouldn't be surprised if you see like the Cat or
Trish Stratus.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to make up the numbers.
I think that's a good possibility. Hopefully, we see some really good surprises.
Oh,
out of
Lita. Lita's still running.
Lita's still in shape, actually.
Yeah, so yeah, that's true. I can see it.
That'd be very interesting. Okay, that was your headlines. And before we go to the break, I just want to give a brief shout out to our Vantage Point Retro Wrestling Podcast. If you're into old school wrestling, Alex, these guys have it down. They have some pretty cool episodes. I enjoy listening to them, and you should too. Joe Marotta, this guy actually helped me out in figuring out Skype interviews. This is our first interview, so kind of had a rough time doing this, but shout out to Joe Marotta of our Vantage Point Retro Wrestling Podcast.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we want you to stick around. Up next after the break, we've got our interview with Simon Grimm we did last week, so stay tuned.
If you're looking for a unique, clean, and comfortable shop to get your next tattoo, check out the artists at Galaveras Tattoos. They're located downtown San Antonio at 628 South St. Mary's, just north of Cesar Chavez. Galaveras is home to some of the best, most experienced tattoo artists in San Antonio, and the only shop in town with 4 female artists on staff. Established in 2005, Galaveras Tattoos offers a variety of styles and the highest quality tattoos with a price that won't hurt your budget. So stop by for a consultation or give them a call to schedule one. It's easy. 210-227-7673. That's 210-227-7673. Calaveras Tattoos, San Antonio's favorite tattoo shop.
If you're interested in San Antonio's nightlife or just got out of work and want to knock a few back with some friends, check out El Luchador located at 622 Roosevelt in Southtown. El Luchador is a wrestling-themed bar with a neighborhood bar feel. They've got a friendly staff and offer great drink specials. They also host a variety of events such as Loteria Night, Trivia Night, and live music. Be sure to add them on Facebook at Luchador Bar SA. El Luchador, located at 622 Roosevelt in Southtown.
Hey moviegoers, this is Ryan D, Akinola Ryan 680. This is Alamo City Movie Talk. Meet my crew.
I'm Mike at Polaris Mike. We do movie reviews.
Juan at Cloud X Drive, and we do trailer reactions.
I'm Juan the Cook Crane, and we do everything movie related. And once again, you're listening to One Sweet Wrestling Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, on our podcast tonight, the man with possibly the best mustache in all of professional wrestling, Mr. Simon Grimm.
Yes.
I contend I only have that title because Big Bully Busick is retired.
Well,
and if he ever came out of retirement, I'd lose it.
How do you feel you stack up against Don Fry, mustache wise?
Physically, like in like against each other, I think he was in a Godzilla movie and I wasn't, so I don't know that I really can even compare. I mean, mustache wise, they're two different styles. I mean, would you compare a luchador to a Canadian technician? I mean, they're two completely different brands of wrestler. That's why they appreciate each other. Hence, Bret Hart, pointing out that El Dandy is a jam up guy and a hell of a competitor, but.
Shout out to El Dandy.
Nice.
Wow. All right.
Nice.
Okay, so this is I'm going to go off the rails here because a lot of these interviews you get the same question, so I'm just going to start saying stuff that's kind of insane but true.
So are we.
I once Googled Doubt El Dandy, and for some reason a photo of me and Aiden English came up in the search.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know why. It was just it was our 2 old promo photos, both before we were signed. And when I Googled that El Dandy, I mean, obvious stuff came up, Bret Hart, El Dandy. But for some reason, a photo of us came up, and I was very adamant. I have never doubted El Dandy in my life, so I did not appreciate Google spreading that lie.
Also, hey, as a Japanese wrestling fan, I have to thank you for spreading the word about Takayama and his fund. I mean, I know he's going to need some major. I think he's. I don't know have they said if he's going to ever walk again, or is he just kind of in limbo at this point?
I think it's kind of in limbo because they obviously, with any spinal injuries, it's a lot of guesswork and going with what happens. The last I heard was he was out of the hospital and he's in a wheelchair. He can move around with the tube thing that they have. I don't know how that actually functions, but I know it's a thing that if you're a full quad, as they call it, you can use to get around. I know a couple of people over in Japan that are tight with him and they're fairly positive. I got to meet him. He was super nice and he wanted a photo, which was weird because I would have asked for a photo with him, but him and 296 Nux is I think his name's Hiroshi is his actual name, but I guess he runs a store in Japan, like a merch store.
Okay.
And he, so he's tight with a lot of those guys. He was like, yeah, Takayama-san wants a photo with you. I was like, oh, absolutely. And I found out later Takayama actually bought the Vaudevillains shirt at that show. and I was very proud of that. And even if it's just him saying the word about the fund, because I mean, he's an awesome wrestler. I don't think he gets enough credit, and he's taken some severe beatings over the years. And he really, I don't think it's wrong. Sometimes you see the crowdfunding stuff for really terrible things or for things that turn out to be terrible, but I don't think there's anything real downside to this one.
Sure, at this point, I want to say he's the only person in Fire Pro Wrestling that has his own licensed likeness, and all the proceeds that go from you getting that, I want to say, downloadable content on Fire Pro Wrestling go towards that fund as well.
I actually didn't know that, but that's pretty awesome. So I highly recommend, if you have Fire Pro Wrestling World, download the Takayama DLC and do something good and get to play as Takayama in Fire Pro, which is pretty awesome unto itself.
So kind of going back to the beginning of your career, what got you into pro wrestling in general?
I've always watched it. I started watching it when I was around 3 years old. I have an older brother, so we watched the kids in the 80s. So, we grew up watching the WWF Saturday, Sunday shows on USA Network.
Oh, yeah. Same with us. I think we're around the same age, so we are right around that time, too.
Yeah, I was more of a WCW guy.
We did not get WCW where I lived until Nitro.
Where did you live with when you were back then? When you were a young
Grimm?
A young Grimm.
Santa Rosa. It's about an hour north of on Highway 101. Actually, a good portion of the town got burned to the ground in the fires recently.
Yeah. Another California guy here.
Oh yes, then he knows. But because of we had Post Newsweek cable at the time. Wound up getting bought by Comcast, as did everything and everyone. Yeah, the closest the first time I remember seeing WCW was actually the WCW video game on NES.
Oh, yeah.
And after that, I remember catching like WCW Saturday Night on KICU 36 out of San Jose. But it was really sporadically aired. I don't remember it being consistent because it aired at like 1 or 2 in the morning.
Right.
Or maybe midnight. Like it was just like it wasn't a normal time I'd be up.
Yeah, definitely.
As a child.
Definitely relatable, because I think when I was probably about the same age, or maybe a little, probably in my early teens, I would say I was catching ECW about that time, and it was like really late at night. So yeah, totally relatable. Who were your favorite pro wrestlers back when you were growing up?
Well, once again, a kid in the 80s, so it was Hogan. The weird part was looking back on it, I didn't really separate between heels and faces for the most part.
I don't think
it almost seemed like more who I remembered.
Yeah.
Because I actually would list, if you asked me as a child who I liked, I would always list Hogan, Andre, Macho Man. Once again, no discerning between their heels or faces at the time. British Bulldogs, Hart Foundation, even though, as I've told more than one person, Jim Neidhart used to scare me when I was a little kid because I had this fear he was going to rip his goatee out.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why. I just had this unnatural fear, and he was going to pull the goatee out and blood was going to spray everywhere. So, and then for reasons that make no sense, I liked Ricky Steamboat, and I say that because I had no recollection of any of his matches.
Hey.
Same actually. But speaking of Ricky Steamboat, he's actually going to be here in San Antonio, Texas
next month.
Next
RCW.
month. Yeah, RCW.
It's a River City Is it River City Wrestling or River City Championship Wrestling?
River City Wrestling. Right.
Is that the one? Is that the one Hernandez runs, or is that somebody else?
Yes. Hernandez is in that one, in that organization.
So am I the only one abused that his name's Sean? I love that you see that guy. He's all chilled out now. And it's just like, what's his name? Sean.
Yeah.
Just the most white guy name you could have.
Oh, I know, and he's so and I'm Hispanic, so it's funny when you're watching some of his matches. I think we actually went to go see Cody when he came through pre-Bullet Club days.
It's when he just left WWE. He was taking independent bookings. I don't know how they swung it, but he got in with RCW at a little horse racetrack. It was like 500 people. It was awesome.
It was pretty good, and he wrestled Hernandez, so it was pretty funny to see my people going "Orale," and the guy's name is Sean.
And I guess he doesn't speak Spanish. That was like a point of contention when he was in TNA. Was that he didn't? They wanted to send him to AAA, and he didn't speak Spanish.
Oh wow, that's funny. And it's, I guess it's a thing when you're in maybe South Texas kind of thing, because I can speak Spanish to a degree, but it's not anything that's I would not be able to speak it fluently to save my life. Put it that way.
Well, I can say growing up in California, because a lot of the areas I lived in were basically Hispanic neighborhoods. It was that thing where there was that generation of kids where their parents were very adamant about them not speaking Spanish because they wanted them to speak English.
Right.
So there's like a generation of, and it's not as common nowadays. Now, I mean, obviously being bilingual is way more of a bonus than it used to be considered. It would be a drain on you.
It's a cultural thing. I know my parents, when they were coming up, they would say they would have some horror stories if they couldn't speak English. So it was very different time, I guess.
And unfortunately, thanks to Donald Trump, they're trying to make it that time again.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Your name Gotch, obviously that's it's got a nod to the catch wrestlers Carl and Frank Gotch. I noticed that you get followed by Josh Barnett a lot. Have you gone down to Eric Paulson's school down in Southern California?
I'm very rarely in California. I think the first time I'm going to be back is just for the holidays, real briefly, because I'm going to a wedding.
Oh.
I've talked to Josh a couple times online. He's always been really cool. But I think it started because people used to ask me who I wanted to wrestle, and I said Josh Barnett. And he was like, I'll do it. I was like, dude, please, you and me at WrestleMania. I'll take the beating. I don't care.
That'd be awesome. Wow. I would love to see that. I would love to see the baby-faced assassin against Simon Grimm.
The man with the world's largest cranium.
Oh, God. Yeah, seriously. Yeah.
Proportional. It's weird. If you look at my body, I have a strangely large head. I don't know what it is. It's not all the time. It's not every photo or every angle, but every once in a while you get a glimpse of it. You're like, wow, his head's disproportionately big for his body.
Is that why your T-shirts look that way? I'm kidding.
No, that's because I have a fascination with hideous artwork. And by hideous, I don't mean bad. I mean hideous is something gross or scary or disgusting or weird. I'm not trying to appeal to 8-year-olds. That's just
right. Oh yeah. I mean, like I would say, and again, we're in the same age bracket. I would say like late 80s, early 90s horror films, blood, guts, all that kind of good stuff, right?
Oh yeah, I remember the challenge when I was a kid was to see if you could watch Hellraiser and eat Jello at the same time. Red Jello. That was an actual thing we would do.
Yes.
And we would like invite friends over and we would challenge them to see if they could do it. That was like to test your stomach if you could handle it.
Do you remember when back in the day they used to air Friday the 13th movies on Friday the 13th?
Oh yeah, no, I have wonderful memories thanks to the good people at the USA Network and USA Up All Night of marathons of Friday the 13th movies, Nightmare on Elm Street movies, Toxic Avenger.
Yes.
Like if you can name a exploitation film from the 80s or 90s, I've probably seen it. There's actually one of my T-shirts that was done by a Redneck Kung Fu. Her name's Alex Mahoney, but she's done shirts for like I think at this point 70 different wrestlers. She asked me what I wanted, and I sent her a photo. It was a cover to an Italian exploitation film called Hands of Steel, which is ridiculous. And my favorite thing in the movie, and I share this because I watched it again recently. There's a point during a fight scene where a guy does like a kick, and his enemy falls over, and then for no reason he does a spinning back fist to the air. That was probably part of the choreography, and the guy just fell over. So rather than not doing it or editing that part out, he does a spinning back fist to nothing, and they left it in. And I was like, oh my god, that's so amazing. You would never leave that take in a movie today. You would reshoot it or you'd edit it. And there's like something about those films that's so special because it's that mixture of incompetence and passion that you just don't find anymore.
Exactly. Speaking of those kinds of movies and stuff, I'm a huge Misfits fan. And I noticed that one of your T-shirts is a horror business play-up kind of thing.
Oh, yes, that's Juan of the Dead, Juan Ortiz, who's a wonderful artist from California.
Mm-hmm.
He actually did that for me. He actually just made the picture for fun, and I asked him, hey, can I use that for a shirt? And he said, sure. But he's done shirts for me, Cody. He actually just did one for Hogan, for one of Hogan's Pro Wrestling T-shirts. He did one of those.
Oh, badass.
He's getting a lot of work now. He's really good. Nice guy, too.
That's cool. That's awesome. Are you a Misfits fan? Are you a punk enthusiast?
I am actually. As I mentioned, I'm from Santa Rosa. If you're familiar with the region, you'll know that Santa Rosa is about 15 miles north of Petaluma, and Petaluma is the home to the world-famous Phoenix Theater, notable for, among other things, being bands like Metallica, Green Day, Black Eyed Peas, Pre-Fergie, Faith No More, Primus, NoFX. They all, like, if you went through the Bay Area, the Phoenix was basically like your last stop before going to Oregon and Washington. But I would attend a lot of shows there when I was a kid. I probably saw Primus there like 30 times just for fun.
That's awesome.
But yeah, them.
Do you go
Mr.
to shows
Bungle,
anymore?
Not really anymore. Mostly just because of time.
Yeah.
Like I just don't have a lot of time. The last one I went to was a nerdcore hip hop show with my buddy Mega Ran. Shout out to Mega Ran. Schaefer the Dark Lord, MC Lars, and MC Frontalot, which was a lot of fun. I was actually 2 days after my birthday, so I got to go up on stage and take a bump because I've been drinking. You can't put me on the stage when I've been drinking and not expect me to bump.
What's your drink of choice?
It was vodka or rum. I'm call me a pirate if you must.
That's okay. I've got plenty here at the Pirate Bar, so it's all good.
So obviously you're quite the gamer. Am I incorrect in assuming so?
Once again, not as much as I have been, just because I'm busy with other stuff right now. But I still like to play every once in a while. It just depends.
Okay, so I got to ask, what was your favorite pro wrestling game growing up?
Growing up, it was probably SmackDown 2. Whoa. Which is a bold choice, I know. As an adult, I would have to say Virtual Pro Wrestling 2.
Yes.
And
yes.
The reason is...
We had a bet. Go ahead.
You had a bet?
We had a bet, which was going to be your favorite game, and he won. So Alex won on that.
Well, congratulations, Alex.
Well, let me ask you. Getting back to wrestling, are you still a fan of pro wrestling?
Yes, actually, more than I've been in a long time, to be perfectly honest.
So, what are you currently watching, or if you have time, what are your eyes on?
Anything I can find, honestly. Usually, it's a lot more Japanese. That's my preference as far as wrestling goes. Occasionally I'll watch indie wrestling, but that's more if I know I'm going to wrestle someone. I like to get a feel for their style if we've never worked together before, so I can sort of have an idea of who I'm working with. So because there's some cases where you get told, okay, you're going to wrestle this guy, and I'm like, I've never heard of him.
Yeah. I'm over
the age of 30, so a lot of these guys are new to me. Which that's one nice thing about one of the nice things about going to Ring of Honor is like I run into guys like Silas Young, who I worked in like 2004, Chris Daniels, who I've known since like 2001, Frankie Kazarian, like all these guys I've known before.
Right.
In addition to the guys that I've actually I'm just now meeting, but it's a nice change of pace because a lot of the indie shows you go to, it's like I don't know who's who. I'm trying to get up on it because obviously it's something I have to know now.
Yeah, we were actually at the Ring of Honor show when they came through San Antonio, and we were watching Silas Young and Beer City Bruiser, and I mean. Those guys were pretty awesome. It was my first time actually seeing Silas Young, or second time, but just throws on a great match. Very good storytelling.
No, he's very talented. He never got the credit he deserved for as good as he was. The same thing with like a guy like Nigel McGuinness, where his career should have been so much bigger than it wound up being. And
yes, agree.
For literally shoulder injuries. That's all it was that held him down. That's kind of sad, but that's where it goes.
So as a fan of Japanese wrestling, I got to ask you, who's your preference, Muta or Liger?
Oh, that's not fair.
It's not fair. I know.
Wait. But have you heard this question being asked of you before?
No.
Awesome. That's what we wanted to get.
I get a lot of the same questions over and over again. I think I mentioned that before.
Yes.
But no one's asked me this one. It's hard because one of my favorite matches is the, I think it's 96, the Muta Liger match when Liger was coming back from the broken leg, where Muta rips his mask off and he's got the face paint on and everything.
Yeah, it's the white face paint.
Yeah, and then he rips off his top and he's got like the tiger stripes all over his body.
Yeah. He looks like
Liger
Hayabusa.
stripes. And like that was I'm sorry, what?
I'm sorry. He said he looks like Hayabusa.
A bit, but that was the thing. It's like it was as you see it, and you go, "Dude, that's awesome." And it was an odd match because I don't know if they were working around Liger just being back from the ankle break, but they just told this brilliant story with very little of what you. Even Muta losing his mind at one point because he keeps setting up a table and keeps falling over, so he starts kicking the table.
Yeah.
It seems ridiculous, but he does that. And even the finish is relatively simple. Where I think it's like Liger attempts to stab him Liger tries to stab him with a screwdriver. Muta moves, hits him with the green mist, slam, moonsault, 1, 2, 3, like relatively quick. But the match itself is just such a spectacle that that's what I love. So I'd say if we're talking about from a character standpoint, I'd say Muta is, I think, the best heel of all time. I don't think he gets enough credit for being as good a heel as he was because it's very easy, I think, to be a cheap, cowardly heel. Being an actual frightening heel is really hard, especially when most baby faces aren't necessarily as giving as they should be. So I would tend to think that like I go Muta on that regard. But if we're talking about as far as like just straight matches go, probably Liger.
I would agree. The Super Junior matches that both of them or Liger had was. You can't really compare it to anybody else.
Oh, the finish, even the finish on him and Sasuke is amazing. Even the this is one that doesn't get talked about a lot. The 2000 J-Cup when Liger wrestled Tiger Mask 4. Brilliant finish because Liger's whole deal is the palm strike. At one point, he goes to throw it, and Tiger Mask catches his wrist with both hands, and he's holding him, and he's like pushing it back, and Liger suddenly realizes the thing we all forget, that he has two hands, palm thrusts him with the left and knocks him out. Cover 1, 2, 3. And I was like, that's so awesome because It reminded me actually a lot of a finish that I think I'd seen Stan Hansen do, I think in All Japan, where someone worked his left arm. So the whole match, he tries to throw the lariat, the guy knocks it down, and he just goes, hits him with the right arm, knocks him out. Like that's really smart.
Shout out to Stan Hansen.
I love Stan Hansen. If I have one true regret in WWE, it's that I did not get my photo taken with him at WrestleMania, and I really wanted to.
Just couldn't catch him, or was it just?
I couldn't catch him. Is pretty much what it came down to. I had one chance. I had one moment where I had a chance, but it was that thing where someone came up to talk to him, and I felt awkward. Like, oh hey, Mr. Hansen, can I get a photo? Like, it's always something that I feel really awkward about.
You had a fanboy moment. That's usually what happens to us when if we see someone just kind of just there, like, dude, go talk to him. Okay. And then someone just walks up and, hey, you got to go get ready for your match or whatever, kind of thing. And we're just like, just kind of cower in the corner. And
it's like Homer and Mr. T. Yeah. He was going to talk to him, and he kept saying he was going to talk to him, and then Mr. T left.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't get that back.
And when I asked him to be back, he said, I don't know.
I don't know.
He doesn't know, Marge. He doesn't know. So we've noticed you do a couple of Ring of Honor dates. Is this just strictly independent contractual thing, or are you kind of looking to eventually sign the dotted line and join Ring of Honor's ranks?
It really depends on it basically depends on Ring of Honor and what their desire to go forward with this is. I mean, if they want to use me full time or if they'd like to use me more independently, it's really up to them. Obviously, my primary goal has always been working in Japan. Mm-hmm. So it depends on how much that would impact that. New Japan does have a working relationship with Ring of Honor, so that would be very convenient.
Right.
It really just depends on what Ring of Honor wants at this point.
So,
and if I agree with what they want, that's the other part of it. I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah. So going along with New Japan, and all of Japan, who do you want to go up against? Who are your future matchups that you're looking forward to, or that you are hoping that are going to happen soon?
That I personally want to see, or that I'd like to be a part of.
You be a part of. Me be
a part of. It's sad because for a long time the one I really wanted was Shibata.
Oh.
Yeah. That obviously that's not very likely for at least a long time, for at least a while. That's at best unlikely, and at worst just impossible at this point, which is sad because he was one of those people I really enjoyed watching.
Absolutely.
But Goto would be a big one. I actually really enjoy the way Goto's style is. I got to work out a bit with Sho and Yo with the Roppongi 3K. Those guys are awesome.
Right.
As well as Rocky Romero is another one, even though I know he works around other places, but he's pretty much been New Japan for better part of a decade now. Yeah, I mean, guys in the cruiserweight or the junior heavyweight division, obviously they've got a lot of really talented guys, as well as Okada. I almost feel like it's cliche to say you want to work with because he's their top guy.
Right.
It's like saying you want to work with Cena or saying you want to work with Hogan or Flair. It's like, well, yeah, of course you do. I mean, he's the top guy. He's very talented. A little Ishii, Tomohiro Ishii. He's one that I would actually really like. Because he's just a little bastard. He just seems like he would be fun to wrestle.
That'd be a good match, actually. I'd actually like to see that.
Just a mean little man, him. Naito would be another one. I mean, it's weird because as much as people tend to focus on like the Bullet Club and a lot of the foreigners, and even then I tend to do that too. I mean, before if you'd asked me this, I probably would have said Tangaloa and Tamatonga. I'd love to work with God. Those guys are awesome. I know Tangaloa from when he was in development or when he was in WWE. He's a really cool guy, so that would also be a nice thing. But I think people tend to forget there's a lot of like super high talent in New Japan right now as far as their native guys go. And then, I mean, you have guys like Liger, who obviously is not working a full schedule anymore, like Ghetto, who mostly works in like tag stuff just sort of for fun at this point because he's mainly office. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's a lot of talent there and there's a lot of guys worth working.
Well, one day I hope to see you in a G1. That's my dream, just to see you go up against whoever at that point, because I know they have a young lion right now, one of their young boys. I don't know what his name is, and I apologize, but he is just huge. I mean, this dude has muscle on muscle.
Oh, I know who you're talking about because I'm trying to remember what his name is.
And he's got this really cool mouthpiece that looks like he has fangs.
I want to say it's Kinoshita.
But
Kitamura. Kitamura, that's who it is.
Kitamura, that's right. If anything, I just want to see you guys lift against each other. I'm pretty sure you can give him a run for his money.
I cannot. I'm surprisingly weak.
What? No. Don't tell me that. Don't break my heart.
In the gym, I'm surprisingly weak. I'm better at deadlifting people than I am at deadlifting weight. Like, in all honesty, I've never been a big gym guy. I obviously I have enough time to work out like really seriously all the time now. But yeah, I was never big into powerlifting. I was always more into functional weight training until I went to WWE. That was the first time I ever did any sort of Olympic lifting or anything like that. And even then, my technique was so bad, I was really prone to injury, so I tried to avoid it. And it was only after my release that I started having the time to really focus on technique and start doing, where I can deadlift and squat and snatch and clean and jerk and all the Olympic lifts. But yeah, before that, that's really relatively new for me. I was always more about like, doing yoga and lightweight training and bodyweight exercises than anything.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty neat.
But that's also why 35. I'm actually in much better shape health wise than a lot of guys are. Well, I don't have a lot of the injuries that most people get.
That's something definitely to look out for, especially in your line of business. I mean, you got to take care of your body, and I mean that's one of the major things. And DDP yoga. I mean,
Oh, DDP yoga regularly. I will never tell someone not to do yoga. That's the thing. If you're talking about your health,
right,
and even just like for wrestling especially, but I mean for anything else, yoga is really helpful. Just like I actually, believe it or not, help me with powerlifting. Sun salutation. Because one of my problems with deadlifting was I used to round my back really badly, and doing sun salutation, I was able to loosen my back up enough to where I got in the mode of having it flat and straight and feeling what that was like. So I knew when I was in the right position to lock out, so I could actually lift the weight without rolling my back. So it wound up helping me tremendously to do that. So
that's awesome. Yeah. My girlfriend would actually love hearing you say that.
Yeah, seriously, my wife is going to be like, "Oh, see, I told you, you don't want to do yoga, but you want to lift all these heavy weights and be stupid, and you want to hurt yourself. So guess what? Now you're going to have to do some yoga."
Well, if anything, I'd say if you're lifting like 3 days a week or 4 days a week, whatever, doing a couple days a week of yoga isn't bad. I mean, that it will help you. It will actually help your lifts in the long term.
Congratulations, Anna. You're right. You hear it first.
Yeah, Jerry Ashley, you heard it as well. Simon Grimm totally supports yoga.
You know who also does? The Uha Nation. Apollo Crews.
Nice plug.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I love Uha. He's the best.
Right on.
But what was it? Because he'd even Seth Rollins actually is another one who's big on yoga. Because Uha was having a lot of problems with like his shoulder mobility and stuff, just because the guy's jacked to the gills. So he was, and Rollins told him, he was like, he gave him this. He was like, dude, download this yoga app, start doing these, a couple days a week just to warm up even. And he's like, dude, it totally improved my flexibility. Because Uha, as athletic as he is, he could not bend over and touch his toes.
Is that right?
Like he was like straight legged, he could not bend over and touch his toes.
Wow.
Because he could do a leapfrog and like put his hands straight out of his sides and kick himself in the palms. But he could, for whatever, it was the weirdest thing. And he'd even admitted, he was like, I couldn't, for whatever reason, I just couldn't do it. And thanks to yoga, he can do that now.
That's fantastic. Really, we're kind of gonna get to the tail end of this. So, what are your plans for 2018? What's going on for Simon Grimm? What are you hoping for?
Well, what I'm hoping for is by the end of the year to obviously have been started working in Japan. You'll be able to see me at Ring of Honor. That's one place. Interestingly enough, you'll be able to see me at What, which is called a company called Wrestling Has It Tomorrow, which is a new group forming out in Rhode Island. I'm trying to get down to Texas. Obviously, that's another place I'd like to go. I need to get in contact with the Wrestle Circus.
Where can wrestling fans of Simon Grimm keep up with you?
Well, you can find me on Twitter or Facebook at Devious Journey. Which, if you look up the word devious, you'll find that there's a funny little in joke there that a lot of people don't know. But you actually have to look up the definition of the word. But at Devious Journey. And then on Instagram, I'm still at Gotchstyle WWE because thanks to the extremely, shall we say, stringent security policies put forward by Instagram, I'm not allowed to change my Instagram name.
Wow.
Strange. And WWE doesn't have any problem with it?
Fun fact, I found this out just last week from on another podcast I was doing. They abandoned the Simon Gotch trademark.
Wow.
Legally, for $240, I could own the name.
I mean, do you want a GoFundMe account started for you?
You know what? I kind of thought of doing that just for the sheer hilarity of I'm going to get a GoFundMe so I can. It's not even that I don't have the money. It's almost like on the one hand, I think it would be funny to own the name just so I could legally throw it on a flyer just to amuse myself.
Are you looking at doing any acting gigs or anything like that in the future, or are we sticking to wrestling?
I'm actually friends with Lloyd Kaufman from Troma Films, so I've been campaigning to be the new Toxic Avenger. That's just, personally.
I think it's about time, don't you?
I actually played Toxie at the premiere of Poultrygeist in 2007.
Nice.
And I was said to be the best Toxie Lloyd had ever seen, first and foremost, and I scared him. So my older brother does promotional work for Troma, which is how I got the gig, and it's how I met Lloyd. So if you ever go to San Diego Comic-Con, my brother is the svelte young man with the shoulder-length brown hair. His name's Marcus. He's a great guy. Every time Lloyd would be like, hey, don't tone it down or bring it up. It was always he'd go to Marcus and Marcus would tell me. And finally I said, why does he keep telling you to tell me? Because I always heard that Lloyd would like yell at the guys that played Toxie. And he said, oh, I think he's afraid of you. And sure enough, I found out later he was afraid of me because usually it would be like some super skinny goth guy or like a sort of short chubby guy. And he was surprised to have a Toxie who was a little bit tall and had muscles. So he was afraid I would hurt him if he yelled at me.
So your match with Cara Noir.
Oh, yes. You said you were going to bring this up.
I enjoyed it thoroughly. I feel like your work has, and I hope you don't take offense to this, because I think that when you're in the WWE banner, if you will, you're kind of limited as far as time and whatnot. So we don't get to see the extent of what a lot of the talent can actually do. And in that match, I want to say that your skills are, I just think it was amazing. Like, your moveset was great, very aggressive. I enjoyed it. I want to ask about your character, Simon Grimm. As far as like, where's the inspiration come from that? And I understand that, you know, it's kind of, you know, you still kind of have like the Simon Gotch the strongman look. I want to ask, like, where was your inspiration from that?
Well, the original character was just kind of a takeoff on the old carnival wrestlers. That's all it was meant to be. And obviously through the years, it was modified, repackaged, re-edited, rewritten, sent back to corporate to be tested in front of an audience. But the original idea was just a carnival wrestler. That's all it was supposed to be. That was how I pitched it. That was the gimmick. That was the character. The whole thing that I've been doing lately is more just, as weird as it might sound, it's very anti-gimmick, as odd as it might sound. The aesthetic has changed a little bit. I'm not wearing the singlet anymore. I'm not wearing the cuffs or the belt.
Right.
I just got a fresh pair of trunks made. They actually... Fun story. I was sitting down to dinner, and my gear lady showed up to drop off my trunks, and we wound up talking. And that was why I was 5 minutes late starting this interview in the first place, was because I had to like wolf down my dinner because we talked right up until about 8:55 or 7:55. I was like, oh, I have an interview in 5 minutes. I was like, okay, tell them I'll be five. Tell them it'll be 5 extra minutes. Eat my dinner real quick. Okay, good. But a lot of the idea was just that I wanted to more demonstrate that, as you saw in that match, because we ran the gambit. We did some British wrestling, we did some amateur style wrestling, we did some brawling, we did some comedy, we did some hardcore wrestling.
Yes.
I got Spider-Man kissed.
Yeah.
I then, of course, responded with no means no.
Yeah. I liked it.
But it was an insane match. And Tom, Cara Noir, is amazingly talented. He doesn't get enough credit. I told him last time I was there, I was like, I don't know if you put your stuff into WWE yet, but you absolutely should. I was like, I don't know if that's a goal for you, but he's in great shape. He's actually surprisingly tall. I've never seen an entrance as long as his that I actually sat and watched the whole thing.
You know what? Same here. I was sitting there watching the match, and I was just enthralled by his entrance. The wings, all that stuff, like, just it was almost like you're watching. It was like ballet, basically.
Yeah, the theatrics of his stuff is amazing. Like, he's really underrated,
right.
And I'm glad he's getting a lot more work in England now. But he's someone I would love to see get even bigger because he's super talented. He's a great guy, really humble. He actually came out of the same school as Will Ospreay, the London School of Lucha Libre,
nice.
Which is a fun place.
That's awesome.
But yeah, he's super talented. He really, if you're not following him on Twitter, it's I believe it's TD Noir on Twitter and Instagram. But he's, like I said, he's super talented, and the match itself was so fun because it was just like, what crazy shit can we think to do?
Yeah, that was fun.
And that was bringing in the bike was his idea, and I was like, okay, how would you feel if I basically gave you the Shattered Dreams of the bicycle? And he said, okay, we'll do that. But it was a ridiculous match. But that was the whole idea: was how crazy can we get? How much stuff can we do? And how. I think that's the weird thing, is that too often in wrestling, I'm going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here.
Go for it.
Wrestling, I think, is the only industry I know of that's actually behind the audience instead of ahead of them. In most industries, your goal is to be ahead of your customer base.
Right.
If you're McDonald's, you're going to try and release a burger, or a sandwich, whatever, before it's like the hot thing. You're not going to. Like, if you see that, oh, hey, a lot of burger joints are starting to do these like really high-end burgers, or a lot of places are starting to do these high-end burgers, we're going to release a McDonald's going to have a high-end burger too. Whereas in pro wrestling, I feel like we're often behind on what the audience is interested in. I think we still tend to cling to a lot of cliches from the industry when it was still a con.
Right.
That are not applicable to wrestling in the modern era. I'm in the short list, and he might not like me, but I'm probably on the short list of people. I actually like a lot of what Jim Cornette says as far as booking goes, but I do disagree with some of the stuff he says as far as like oh, this is killing the business, that's killing the business. You know, for a business that's been getting killed consecutively every day for the past 35 years, it seems pretty healthy. But to me, the thing that always gets me is, just as an example, I guess he did a show recently where it was him managing against another tag team, or him managing one tag team, and then I think Austin Idol was managing the other. And he tells his whole story on his podcast about Austin Idol demanded to be paid $1 more than me just so he'd be the highest paid guy on the card. and I'm going into like bartender in Kingpin mode where I'm like, yeah, I appreciate the old con. You know, when what's it? Woody Harrelson and Randy Quaid try and do the drunk stranger,
right?
And he's like, yeah, guys, I know the drunk stranger. I appreciate the old cons. I know what you guys want. Hang on. And that was kind of how I felt. I was like, as a wrestling fan, I appreciate the old con.
Right.
But as someone who is like in the wrestling industry in the modern era, excuse me, I'm coughing a terrible storm right now. I'm probably getting a hex put on me by Jim Cornette. He heard I was talking about him. He's an atheist, but damn it, he knows some voodoo.
Yeah, he does.
So they spent a lot of time in Houma, Louisiana, so he's probably got a few Creole.
You know he does.
Oh, yeah.
Chicken bones.
Simon Grimm doll in his office.
You gonna die.
He's like, every time you say my name, kid, I'm just gonna stab you in the throat. So, but it was that sort of thing where I look at it and go, but in the wrestling industry, we know it's a work. We like the fans know it's not that this isn't real.
Right.
Dave, like the example I often use is Dave Proust and James Earl Jones don't walk down the street and choke people to convince you that Darth Vader's a heel.
That's a good analogy.
But for whatever reason, and I'm guilty of, I've done it myself. But wrestlers will be like mean to fans because we're heels, we got to convince them we're heels. But why? They don't walk away thinking, oh wow, he's a really good heel. They walk away thinking, wow, he's an asshole.
Yeah. Right.
And if this is real, you'll pay to watch an asshole get beat up. But if they know it's a work, they know you're not going to get they're going to go, oh, well, he's not really going to get beat up because this isn't real. So he's just a jerk. I'm not going to give my money to a jerk. And you lose fans that way. That's what drives the audience away.
Right.
Is us not being, and it's not necessarily just that, but the idea of us being sort of archaic in our thinking of how matches need to look or how they need to be put together or what's good psychology, what's good storytelling. In the end, I can't tell you what good art is. I can only tell you if I liked what you showed me or not. We can argue all day about what is good art or not, but the thing we can all agree on usually is that it's honest self-expression. Anytime you try and do something by formula, you're not expressing yourself honestly. You're just trying to recreate what someone else does. If I watch a match and I go, well, that was good, but it's just Flair Steamboat, or it's just, like you're just doing Flair Steamboat, or you're just doing, Rock and Rolls versus Midnight. At a certain point, I'm going to go, I've seen that before. I've seen guys I have an emotional connection to do that already. Why would I care about someone I don't have an emotional connection to doing those exact same moves and spots? And I think that's really the mistake, is that we forget that people get caught up in, oh, is it about drawing money? Is it about, fan reaction? At the end of the day, it's an art, and like any other art, self-expression. It's about being emotionally invested in what you're doing and people emotionally investing in you. And that covers everything from fan reaction to drawing money. Because if people are emotionally invested in you, they will pay. One of my favorite video games, the Yakuza series. It's called Ryuga Gotoku in Japan, but over here it's released as Yakuza. These games have next to no appeal if you're not a complete dork. Like if you are a complete dork for Japanese culture, the games are amazing. But if you're not, and they don't do, like the first time when they released the original game, they did a whole English language cast with like, geez, what was it? Eliza Dushku and Michael Madsen. Wow. And the guy who played who was it? The guy that played he played Lex Luthor on Smallville. Can't remember his name, but he's actually really talented, very funny guy. But he's done a couple of guest spots on Always Sunny. But like this huge English cast. And the game financially bombed, but it had a very small but loyal fan base that started importing the sequel as soon as the game was released. So they saw that and they released the second game a year later, but without dubbing it, and it actually did better. Yeah, and the whole deal was that the audience that wanted the game wanted it as it was, and they might not necessarily be 10 million strong, but but it's the same 500,000 people that will buy the game every time it's released. You are guaranteed to make that money, and if all you have to do is subtitle the game and do an English localization, way easier than having to redub it and do all that stuff. But that's what I mean, is that it's a small but loyal fan base. If you are passionate about something, you'll pay for it.
Right.
Yu Suzuki, the producer for Shenmue, raised like $7 million for Shenmue 3.
Wow.
Yeah, like that's coming out next year. So you see that sort of thing where you're like, wow, $7 million from fans who've been waiting 15 years for a third game.
Wow.
If people are passionate about something, they'll pay. They will always pay.
Oh, definitely.
So the mistake I think people make is putting that money over passion. If I'm giving you garbage, if I'm giving you Transformers 5, a movie that is so lazily made that Michael Bay admits it's lazy and the same formula they do in every movie, but people will still pay to see it. Last one they didn't pay so much to see because they started catching on. But if you are passionate, you give 100% emotionally to what you're doing, people will pay to see it. As musicians, you know that, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Look at are you familiar with Henry Rollins' stories about his attempts to blow Iggy Pop off the stage and why he failed so miserably?
God. I've seen him live twice. I love that man. I'm sorry. I'm going to go off on a little fanboy moment.
Please.
Yeah. Henry Rollins is one of my personal heroes. So, yeah, I am very familiar with that story. You're about to you want to try to one-up the guy you're about to go in front of.
Yeah, and he tried to one-up Iggy Pop. Yeah. And the first time he did it, Iggy Pop destroyed him.
Right.
And he said... the way he describes it, he's like, he just blew me off the stage. I was like, and he said, next time I get the chance, I'm going to beat this guy. And he said, when he found out he got the chance, he went in this insane 3-month training regimen. He's in the gym every single day. He's eating heavy. He's lifting. He's working hard on the song. He's like, no, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to kill him. As soon as I get on stage, I'm going to destroy him. And he does. And he's like, he gives everything he has his performance. And he said, I looked off stage. I got off stage. And I said, follow that. And then what I wind up seeing is this ripped up, 53 years old at this point, looking like Bruce Lee monster, just storm the stage and completely destroy everything I just built up out there.
Yep.
He's without even trying. And he said he got off stage, saw me, went, and then kept on walking.
Yeah.
You thought you could beat me. You really thought you could.
Exactly. Hey, that actor, by the way, on Smallville was Michael Rosenbaum.
Michael Rosenbaum. Very good. There we go.
Alex has a question for you, actually.
Alex, please ask me your question.
Is there anybody that, I guess, in the next year or so, you can see kind of gaining more exposure that isn't exactly on anybody's radar at the moment? Somebody that you've seen that's he's going to be the next guy.
That's not on anybody's radar. That's a little bit harder to say. Because as I mentioned Cara Noir, obviously, when we talked about him, I feel like he's someone that, but I think he's in England, he's getting more and more popular. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of hard to say. I mean, I could say someone like Darby Allin, but I feel like he's worked for Evolve. A couple other groups, obviously. Ethan Page, he's getting around a lot. A lot of the guys I feel like I could throw out there. Sammy Guevara is another one. Yeah, I'd be hard-pressed to really say anyone like that. Who would have? That's a good question, honestly. I can't really say I can think of anyone off the top of my head. As I said, a lot of the guys I've seen have been on bigger shows, so I'd be hard-pressed to really pick out someone I think is not on anybody's radar.
No, there was no right or wrong question. I just didn't know if there was somebody that you were absolutely impressed with that went, you can see him going very far real soon.
Yeah, Cara Noir is the big one. A slightly less known one, but if you're around England, he's just ridiculous. He's probably one of the most over-the-top insane heels I've ever seen. There's a guy named Lord Gideon Grey. He's another English guy. He is ridiculous. I absolutely fell in love with watching this guy wrestle just because it's not that he's the greatest wrestler in the world. I don't know if he's a good wrestler even. I couldn't tell you. But he just is an insane person. He did a balcony dive and people were yelling, don't do it, don't do it. And his response was, I'm doing it for the GIF.
Nice.
That sort of thing. He's really out there, but he's a hilarious guy. We did a version of Whose Line Is It Anyway with him. Me, him, Jetta, who's a women's wrestler in England, and then a guy named Torquin, I think it is, or Turquin. One of the things it was world's worst stripper. So we're all just going through our respective things. He gets up there and he just starts screaming, just at the top of his lungs. It's well, if he was a stripper, that would be very off-putting. I suppose that would make the world's worst stripper.
I'm not giving you my money.
He's a very funny guy, and he's done a hardcore tea party with Jimmy Havoc.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so it's pretty. He's done some ridiculous stuff. He'll do death matches and stuff with Havoc, where he just sort of gets beat up. But he's really entertaining.
So one more question before we sign off here, and thank you very much for
thank you for your time.
For your time, definitely.
Time's cheap. They pay me to wrestle. I do everything else for free.
Have you seen any of the work from Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho? And what are your thoughts on that? Hype and that match soon to come? Wrestle Kingdom.
Well, it was
12.
It was a brilliant build because obviously they even sold it like it wasn't going to go anywhere. I liked the fact that it did go somewhere because I don't know if you're familiar with this. For years, probably for 5 or 6 years in a row, I think there's actually Takayama that Jericho was building that with.
Really?
It wasn't an official thing ever, but Jericho knew Takayama from his time in Japan, and Takayama would always sit ringside at the at the WWE shows in Japan. So Jericho would always get out of the ring and he'd yell at Takayama, and Takayama would get up and yell at him, and they'd sort of like shove each other over the guardrail. This was a thing for several years in a row. And this the first time they had this rumor about Jericho. It was probably, I think, after it was either it was like right after he left. I think the first time, or right after he was about to leave after the Y2J Save Us thing. In like 2009. I can't remember. It was one or the other. I can't remember which one it was. But it was like 2009. There was a rumor that he was actually going to do the same thing where he was going to wrestle Takayama at the Tokyo Dome. It never came together. But and obviously this is like pre-social media being a huge thing. So that was how they did it. Was they just did it at the live shows. But I think it was a great build. I have one minor gripe, and this is going to sound so silly. I did not like that the promo that Jericho called him a bitch at the end.
It did seem a little forced.
It did, and I have a theory, and I'm apologizing because I'm saying this to a Texan, and not a lot of people are probably going to want to call for my head when I say this. I don't think Steve Austin was that great a promo. I think if you actually break down his promos, it's not they were bad. He was passionate. I will give him that. But I think a lot of the time people were popping for the swearing, not for the promo.
Yes.
I think if you because I remember one very specifically where the line, "You want me to be like Cool Hand Luke? Work within your system. All right, I'll be like Cool Hand Luke." I'm a cinephile. I like movies.
Yeah.
But I can safely say your average 12 to 13-year-old that was watching WWE Raw or WWF Raw in 1998 didn't know what the hell Cool Hand Luke was.
Right.
It's a really weird reference.
I mean,
and
I got it, but yeah, I wasn't your average 12-year-old. I was watching Full Metal Jacket at 9. So
nice. Arlie Ermy, beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
But it was that sort of thing where I feel like if you look at his promos objectively, it was just the swearing that people popped because no one else was doing it at the time. He was, like I said, he was passionate. He definitely gave his all emotionally in a promo, which is good. I just think the thing that people really connected with was the swearing, and a lot of that tends to get glossed over. And if you look outside of even the Austin 316 promo, would that work with any line other than "I just whooped your ass"?
No.
No. And that and to a certain extent that justifies the cursing. But then there are other promos where you hear him, where you do it, and you're like, I don't know. Like if you take the swearing out, you don't really have a promo, and that's when I start to go, I feel like it's kind of a waste. I almost think like it's more powerful if he doesn't go there with like Jericho with that promo. Right. If he didn't say bitch, I almost feel like it's more powerful.
He doesn't have to.
Exactly. It's like you're the alpha, dude. You're the top dog. Yeah. You're the guy. You don't even need to swear. You don't even like. I don't know if you're familiar with the Lonely Island song Rocky.
Yeah.
There's a line about I went to while I was training while I was punching on meat in a rickety shack, Rocky was sipping on champagne and having models rub his back. I was like the idea of the preparation for this match is Omega's like training like a madman and Jericho's like, you know how good I am?
Yeah.
You think I need to trade for this? It's like you think I'm not rich just walking out there? But that's like I said, that's just me as a wrestling fan pointing out something I personally like or don't like. Which is the hard thing with being a wrestler is because it's sometimes hard to shut off that part of your brain when you watch wrestling. That like to where you go, I didn't really like that, or I liked that, but I would like this more. Oh, why didn't you do that? Or you should have done this spot, or oh man, that spot was really cool. I should steal it. But I was watching a video today and I noticed Drew Galloway doing the using Chris Hero's setup for a pile driver, and I just remember thinking,
yeah.
But it was one of those things where it's like, okay, well, I mean, they can argue amongst themselves. That's not my problem.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's wrestling. You see something you like, you go, hey, I'm going to use that. It's just like music. You hear a chord, you go, oh, hey, I'm going to, or a little melody, you go, oh, hey, I'll steal that.
Exactly.
But like I said, for me, I think it's a great build, and I think it'll be a great match.
Awesome.
And I'm personally excited for it. So yeah.
Rad. Well, Simon Grimm, thank you again for your time. We appreciate it. We look forward to seeing future matches from you, and hopefully you make your way through South Texas. We can grab some barbecue, grab some beers, and hang out.
I would absolutely be on board with that, and I will even listen to your band's demo.
Awesome.
Last question. If anybody wants to contact you for booking, where can they do that?
That can be done at bookingsimon@yahoo.com. So it's bookingsimon@yahoo.com. You can also contact me through my Facebook fan page, which is @Devious Journey. That's another way to do it. I'm offering some great deals this time of year just because I'm in the holiday spirit. So if you book me before the end of the year, you will actually get a discounted price. That's a good investment for anyone who really wants to see me at their show. I'm very entertaining. I'm fun. So if the kids like me,
he's cool.
The ladies don't mind me. I mean, they don't love me, but I mean, they're okay with me being there. They're not going to be mad that he booked me. The fellows, they'll think I'm cool too.
Yeah.
There you go.
I got nice hair. You know, it's
I mean,
it's a family event. You know, you bring me out to a family event.
You've got that working for you.
Well, yeah. When you get down here, man, we'll go to the Draft House. It's one of the best movie theaters.
Oh yes, Alamo Draft House. Those are good.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be pretty cool.
Awesome, man. That sounds like a great thing to add on to the barbecue and beer.
Hey.
Absolutely, man. Well, we thank you very much for your time, and best of luck in this next coming year. And we really, really, really hope, as I especially do, hope to see you in Japan very soon.
Yes.
Thank you very much. You guys have a good day, and thank you for the fun interview.
Thanks very much. Good night.
Thank you. Have a good night. So, as promised, we delivered our interview with Simon Grimm. Fun guy.
He's a great guy. Great guy to talk to. Really knowledgeable about a wide variety of topics, as you all pretty much heard, and a wealth of random knowledge, which I especially can appreciate.
Yeah, I very much enjoyed the interview. We are going to let you guys go, but before you do, we just want to announce January 26th at El Luchador, we are going to host a wrestling trivia night. So put your Simon Dean caps on, put your Lanny Poffo caps on, bring your brain because we're going to pick it. And it's going to be fun.
You will lose.
Yes, you will lose, girly men. Also, we are going to have an interview on our next episode with Anthony Haynes Cortez. If you're not familiar with Anthony Haynes Cortez, type it into Google and look him up. He's the WWE video meme guy. So lots of cool stuff from him. We get to talk to him about how he got his start. And he actually has a background in wrestling and wrestled in Puerto Rico for a while. So we might talk a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, really funny guy. Make sure you guys stay tuned for next week. And until then, we out.